Okay. Two straight. How would I describe DAOs? I think probably the best way to describe DAOs is sort of talk a little bit about the world around us as it is today. Something that I think a lot of people don't recognize too often is that the world that we live in today is centralizing around us in ways that we don't necessarily notice but have profound impacts on the way we live. In the 90s, early 2000s, you could be in New York City and you could go outside and you could hail a taxi. You could get in a taxi and you'd ride around and maybe you'd have a disagreement with the taxi driver or falling out and you just get outside of the taxi, walk away, and that would be the end of it. Today, maybe Uber bans you, right? You take an Uber and maybe they ban you. But they don't just ban you in New York City. They ban you on the entire planet Earth. So we've gone from a world where you could get into that taxi, have a disagreement, and then the next day you start fresh, you start new. It's a new taxi driver, it's a new experience, a new thing. But now we live in a world where actually you are no longer allowed to take a taxi-like service anywhere on the planet. And that's a very strange dynamic. That's a really strange change in humans. These, I think, are really good examples for how centralization might affect people in ways that they're not thinking about. But it also exists in the digital realm. It exists for all the technologies that we use. If Google deplatforms you, they deplatform you completely. If you are an Apple user and they deplatform you, they deplatform you completely. You are deplatformed from hardware, you are deplatformed from software. What happens when the compute of the world is centralized? When everything that you need to even be considered a real accessible person in this world is centralized, when the platforms that you rely upon don't have any responsibility towards users themselves, where small numbers of organizations maybe control outsized amounts of your life, your ability to be recognized as a person in our society, when the platforms that you use have no credible neutrality. What if there are even more important things in our lives, right? Documents, the things that you use to track your expenses, your email, family photos. What does that look like when you have no control over it?
The original idea behind Tally was to make DAOs work. Denison and I had both talked about DAOs in theory for a long time. We'd known each other before at this crypto co-working space, and DAOs would always come up. But both of us thought it was a little bit of a theoretical problem at the time. But what we saw in 2020 was suddenly all of this theoretical ideas about digital governance had a bunch of applications all emerging very quickly. So a lot of the DeFi projects that launched that summer added governance. And that's when we started Tally, because we thought, oh, this is actually a larger trend. There are lots of people and lots of projects who are going to need to figure out how to share control over really important software and really important financial infrastructure. And that's what we set out to do with Tally.
Many times in the world, you'll make decisions about things. I love giving this example where people come together and they say, okay, let's work on an idea, and they start like a Word document and they say, oh, let's do X and then we'll pay Y and we'll do Z. And they write the Word document and everyone comes around the Word document and they go, oh, great, this is what we're gonna do. And then nothing happens. The document sits there. Now you have to go find someone who's gonna implement it or something like that. And that's all off chain. That's just some sort of social layer thing that you have to work out. And that social layer thing doesn't work when we are talking about organizations like the organizations that are on Tally that span hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the globe managing infrastructure that's worth billions. They need to know, okay, this is the idea that we've created. This is what we've agreed to do. It executes on Tally. And that fact that we know trustlessly, in a credibly neutral way, that the outcome of this idea will happen if we all agree on it, allows Tally to be this critical tool in operating things that are so valuable, that are so large, because all the members, all the people who participate can trust in understanding how it will operate.
Protocol governance has come a really long way in the past few years on a bunch of different levels, right? At the scalability level, it's just riding a big trend as blockchains have figured out how to scale. Every time blockchains scale, they unlock new use cases. And then those use cases need governance. And then because there's so many experiments running at the same time, we learn a lot of stuff both about product and technical implementation, but also about social structure and org structure. And then those best practices, they get copied around the ecosystem. People see what works here and they try it over there. And I expect that trend to continue and to accelerate. So I think the rate of learning will keep getting faster as more people in the space try different things and learn from each other and copy best practices.
We are both building the future, but also operating in the present. We aren't constructing all versions of the future. We don't know everything. People who come into the communities that use Tally, that power them, don't know what a DAO is. They don't understand what are they doing here. We can't throw upon them really new, novel governance ideas. We have to meet these communities where they are today. And Tally has this interesting role of both translating kind of the future of what decentralization looks like to where people are today, what they're capable of doing today.
Our real product North Star is that if the ecosystem succeeds, Tally succeeds. So we spend a lot of time both trying to move quickly toward success and helping DAOs thrive, and also making sure that none of the trade-offs we make along the way undermine the core value of DAOs, right? We have to understand that these systems have to be open and permissionless, so we can't make product compromises that maybe make something work in the short term, but long term undermine the whole value proposition of decentralizing control.
Tally is going to do more things for these communities. It's not just about voting, right? It's not just about proposing. These communities operate on very deep social levels that sometimes aren't even on chain or aren't even digital, right? We will continue to service growing needs of these organizations. And in the future, I think you would imagine that Tally becomes the default ecosystem where you participate in the governance of the things that you use.
Check out the show notes for other links for the announcement, the white paper, how you can get involved if you want to get in touch with us. We'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
See you next week. Cool. All right. We did it, guys.
All right.
Content week complete.
What I love so much about the Tally team is they could be working on anything, but they choose to build this particular wondrous thing.
Tally nominates Tommy. Tommy's like, all right, Aaron's obviously sure. It's so beautiful, man. It's just like so beautiful.